So my wife was crying on the bedroom floor. She then transferred on into the closet, and she was so mad at me. And I had never really seen my wife like this. I had never seen Brooklyn like this. She seems to snap back into natural form pretty quick. She gets back into her natural state. Her natural state is always calm and peaceful, and she's looking, at these things and that. But on this particular day, she was crying. She was, I know she was kind of mad at me. And then she went into the closet, and I went in to kind of console her. We were both very, kind of distraught and upset. But it brought me back to the thought that my mom said all the time, that was, he's seldom early, never late, and always right on time. And I had this in my head, but I wasn't going to say it to my wife, because when your wife is in that type of scenario or that type of state emotionally, it's not the time where you try and be cute with a saying and try and bring it back. It's just you sit there, you listen, and I've learned this over time from doing the wrong things. But here's the situation. We had wanted to buy this property in Chicago. We had a phenomenal salon there in Chicago, in Wicker Park in Bucktown. It was unreal. I mean, the place was incredible. The crew was amazing. We absolutely loved it. And we found a place right across the street. And we had a place, it was about 1,100 square foot that we rented. And right across the street was about 5,500 square foot. And we negotiated to be able to purchase the building. Well, I thought that I had done a good job, because I think they wanted 1.4, and I got them down to like 950. And we were ready to buy the building. It was so exciting. And I remember driving to our bank, and I was going to go put the earnest money down. Well, for something in me, I don't know why, but everything was smooth. And I was like, God just put on my heart, like, call the guy with the bank, like, call him before you put this money down, because if you put the earnest money down, that money's going to be gone. And I just called him and I said, hey, I just wanted to check in, but I knew everything was cool. And he said, actually, I was just about to call you. At this time, I was only a block and a half from the bank of dropping this money off. And he said, I was just about to call you to let you know that you got denied for the loan. And I was like, denied for the loan? Probably 3 or 4 weeks before, we had just been approved for a loan that was 50% higher than what that number was. There's no way that this can happen. But I was just peaceful at the time. And I remember I just, and I left, and I was thinking, I was peaceful, but I was thinking, how am I going to tell my wife this? And I got home and I told her the news. Hey, we're not going to get the building. She had her heart set on it. She wanted the building, and we were ready to go. And we sat that. That's why my wife was crying. And, we were upset, and we were talking, and, all the stuff. And as we go through, now I look back on it, and it's incredible, because, that building we end up not getting. It sat on the market for 2-3 months afterwards. It sold for $200,000 less than what we were actually going to buy it for, because the market had tanked at that time. And then the pandemic happens, and that would have caused financial devastation for us. But God knew that. And I had this plan. I had this desire. I wanted this thing. And God was like, no, it's not the time right now. Hindsight is 2020. Looking back on it, I could say, like, oh, here's the positive side on it. But while I was going through it, while I was in the middle, it's so hard to be able to see it. And so as I sat down today with Proverbs 2, it helped me to realize that God knows that we're going to be in the middle. He knows that at the beginning, we're going to be super excited. At the end, we're going to be able to look back and tell someone all the lessons, all the glorious stuff. But the middle is the part that he wants to comfort us in. And in Proverbs 2, it gives us a focus on where to put our focus at, and where to be able to look to in that middle point, and actually what to do. And it was incredible. So I'm excited to get this party started.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
if you haven't signed up for the Vibe Room, if you haven't got your tickets, I've actually got 2 tickets that I hold aside, and I'm actually going to be giving them out. So whoever, if you're open to it, you want to come and see the podcast live, I've got 2 tickets that I am actually gifting. But here's the thing that you have to do. You have to make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. That's what I would ask for. The second thing is that you put a comment, that you comment and send us a comment, and then you share it with somebody. So you got to be subscribed on both. You got to comment, and then you've got to send it out and share it to somebody, and then send me that message, and we will put you in. We're going to have a bunch of people doing it, and then we'll choose from that point. I can tell you this as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a father, nothing's ever going to turn out exactly the way that you planned it to. And that hopefully that's not a news flash. Hopefully that's just you saying, oh, cool, I already knew that. That's what I would love for you to hear. Because if you are in that place where you say, news flash, no, I've got this plan and it's going to work out exactly the way that I want it to work out, I can tell you this, you're going to be in for a long road and it's going to be quite tough. But when you get to a point and you realize that God is seldom early, he's never late, and he's always right on time. But most of the time, it won't look like the way that you pictured it. And whether that be in business, it be in investing, it be in relationships, any of those things, I just want to encourage you in it. And in Proverbs 2 today, the corresponding proverb, corresponding day, this is exactly what he hit on. And it was funny because there was another situation with the house, and this was in 2017, 2018. And I've been praying for it, and it's been delayed. Like, I know the address. I know exactly where it's at. I know the street. I pray on it, and God hasn't delivered it yet. And I'm hoping that he does, right? So it's 2024 now, so that's 7 years. How long are we willing to wait for his perfect will? Well, it's his timing. And that's the most frustrating things at times. We are going through, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a episode of the podcast called Inchstones. And what Inchstones are is just Kaizen, right? Kaizen, which is a Japanese word for a series of small improvements, or never walk past poor quality. And with Inchstones, just a little tiny Inchstones, you pile them up, it becomes the milestone that you ultimately want anyway. But I believe that if you focus in on those little tiny things, and we have actionable items every single day and we can celebrate them, guess what will happen? The milestones will inevitably happen, but we'll be able to stay present in this moment. So I want to jump right into this too, as far as in Proverbs, because in Proverbs 2, it aims to snatch back our focus and encourage us that when he has our attention, he will deliver, but it'll be on his timing. And so in verse 1, it says this, and it runs it down. Like, if you're in the middle, right? So think of this. Are you delayed in something? Most likely you are. Are you delayed in that business deal? Are you delayed in that relationship? Are you delayed in some desire that you want that you haven't got yet? I could tell you that hit probably every single person listening, watching, and your friends, so share it with them. But God wanted us to understand today, and as I read through this, is that in the middle, it's to seek, right? So to know what to seek, to listen to it, to accept it, and then to store it up. But it's got to be in that order, because a lot of times what I did is I stored things up that I hadn't listened to, I hadn't accepted in my mind, and I definitely didn't seek them out. I just thought, like, it just came into my life, oh, I need to store this thing up. Well, what God tells us, he runs down this line in verse 1, is just to seek it, to listen to it. So if you're seeking it, you'll listen to it. Then you have to accept it, right? Sometimes we hear truth, we hear wisdom, we don't want to accept it. Why? Because we think we know better, or I just don't accept that part of it. Well, the fact that 2 + 2 = 4, the answer doesn't have any emotion about how you feel about it. It is what it is. It's truth, right? And then once we get to the acceptance point, then we store it up. In verse 2, it says, in the middle, turn your ear and apply your heart. Turn your ear and apply your heart, right? Turn your ear to wisdom, apply your heart to understanding. And when we think on that place, it's like when we're in the middle, if we will seek first, we'll listen, we'll accept, and we'll store it up. And then he says, like, I know that there's going to be challenges. Like, you're going to be challenged. Maybe the first time you waited for 5 minutes. Now you're having to wait for 10 minutes for your desire. Now you're having to wait for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm the worst at waiting. My wife knows this. I want it now. I want every single thing that I want, and I want it now. And what God knows is that we're going to go through that. So he said, when you start to feel that itch, he said, turn your ear and apply your heart. And then he said, if that's not enough, once you get to that point, if it starts to be delayed even longer, in verse 3, call out and cry aloud. Call out and cry aloud. There's a difference between calling out, hey, is anyone there? And then crying aloud like, oh my gosh, like this is the only way that I'll be able to get through this. Make sure that you hear my voice. There's a difference between the two. In verse 4, it says, look for it and then search for it. I've talked about my son Maddox at times. I'll be like, son, have you seen my keys? He'll look around like this and be like, nope. Have you seen your cleats? Nope. Okay, you looked for it, son. Did you search for it? You hadn't searched for it yet. So come back to me when you've searched for it, right? And this is what God is saying to us. Look for it first and then search for it. And in verse 5, it says, then and only then you will find it. So watch this. Seek it, listen to it, accept it, store it up, turn your ear, apply your heart, call out, cry aloud, look for it and search for it, and then you will find it. Well, there's a lot of process, God. That's what I was saying. Like, but how many of us have been in that delayed state and we just want to be mad at it, right? Or maybe I'm just talking about myself here. So in verse 6 through 8, here we go, is awareness, acknowledgement, aspiration. Become aware of what the truth is. The truth is there's going to be his purpose, his plan, and his timing. That's the hard thing, right? So think of this. Let's take it one step further. His will, his purpose, his plan, his timing. Take one of those out of there and you insert your own. That's where we're going to have challenges. And it's amazing because that building that I was talking about earlier, or the house that we didn't get in 2017 or 2018, I know that God has something greater for us. I know that. Like he has something better. Now, there's parts of me that is like, man, it better be way better. But he knows. He's seldom early, never late, always right on time. Awareness. Once we become aware of what the truth is, it takes us to the place of acknowledgement. But until you acknowledge, like once you become aware of the truth, then you have to acknowledge it. Once you acknowledge it, you can aspire, you can have aspirations for something greater. But you can't have aspirations for something greater if you haven't acknowledged what the truth is right here, right now. And you definitely can't acknowledge it if you're not aware of it. And sometimes we need to just step back and look and say, okay, what is like right now? Okay. What is right now? And what are my circumstances? Where am I at? Become aware of it. Be truthful. Acknowledge it, and then aspire to do greater things. Or sometimes it's just sticking into the thing that you're doing right now because it's awesome anyway. In verse 9 and 10, this was a wild one because as I was looking at it and I was like, okay, God, when I'm in the middle and I've sought you, I've listened to you, I've accepted you, I've stored it up, I've turned my ear, I've applied my heart, I've called out, I cried aloud, I looked for it, I searched for it, and then I found it. I've got awareness of what is, right? I acknowledge that the truth is there, and then I have aspirations of new things. And then it says, like, I'm like, but what if I get weary? And then he brought it back to center, saying in verse 9 and 10, just follow number one. Just follow number one. I told you who I am. My words, my actions, they're in line. They always will be, so study me. And when you spend a little bit of time with me, you'll see that. And he said, so follow number one. And I learned this from the Deming process. I read the book when I was a kid in the professional beauty industry, just started off like 18 years old. And I remember reading the Deming process book, and he just said, like, one of the core principles, follow number one, because number two can't do anything. And a lot of times we as human beings are just following number two. And when you can apply this in work, when I went to work with a Robert Croming salon and Robert was the head, I followed number one. And number one wasn't him, it was his vision, because he as a man could let me down, but the vision never could. So imagine that. Follow number one. And if you're not following number one, number two can't do anything. In verse 11 through 15, discretion will protect you and understanding will guard you from silliness. Discretion, becoming aware of the thing and then saying, is it for me? Is it not for me? When you really work the discretion muscle, it'll protect you. And then when you have understanding of the situation, it'll guard you from silliness. And as we know, as my mama said all the time, just stay away from silly things. Knuckleheads do silly things. Silliness. When you do silliness, you get silly results, right? And it's a very simple process, but it's not easy. In verse 16 through 19, wisdom will save you from knuckleheads. So wisdom is the right use of knowledge. And if we have the right use of knowledge, we have circumstances come in that are just silly. We can ward those off. That wisdom will bring understanding. Understanding will bring insight. Insight will bring discretion. Discretion will bring discipline. Discipline will bring strength, and it'll bring us back to wisdom, right? And so wisdom will save you from knuckleheads, and because there's going to be a lot of knuckleheads while you're in the middle that will tell you, oh man, you missed out on this opportunity, you did this, and then you could go back to it and say, follow number one. Well, what did number one say? I'm seldom early, I'm never late, I'm always right on time. So you're exactly where God needs you to be right now in this moment, even though sometimes it's hard because you don't want to hear it, and I never wanted to hear it, but I want to encourage you. As we finish up today is when you know how the story ends, it makes it a lot easier to stomach the middle. You see, in the beginning, you'll be super enthusiastic about the thing, right? Oh my gosh, I had a talk with a guy yesterday about a podcast, and he was like, well, I want to talk about it. I'm excited about it. I want to tell people stories. And I said, one of the hardest things is the middle, because it's not the beginning. The beginning, you're going to be super excited about it. At the end of it, if you can make it to the end, you'll look back and your vision will be 2020. It'll be like, oh, all those pitfalls, all those things that happened, those were happened for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. But I can tell you this, when you're in the middle, you ain't saying that to nobody. And when you're in the middle, you're like, why is this happening? This is the worst thing ever. I can't believe that I didn't get what it is that I want. And what God was saying is, I want to comfort you. I want to come alongside you while you're in the middle. You see, like your story that you're going through right now, if you're in the middle of something, which we all are, in the middle, it'll bring anger, doubt, stress, anxiety, and every other emotion that you can imagine. So I want to encourage you that while you're in the middle, right, I've got a desire, right? I got past the enthusiastic, yes, I'm so excited about this thing happening. You're in the middle. Now things are not turning out the way that you want them to. And this is what happened with the building. When we first started off, we looked at it and we were like, this is perfect. We're going to design it. We're going to do all these things. It's going to be amazing. We went through the financial process. It was great. Everything was cool. Then we got into the middle of it and I was like, oh man, I can't believe it got denied. But then I wouldn't say it's the end of the story, but a part of the end was to look back and say, man, the devastation that we would have incurred during the pandemic time, during all these changes, all these things, God knew, right? So my vision was 2020, but in the middle, I was mad, and that's the reason why my wife was sitting on the floor in the bedroom, and she transferred. I don't know how she transferred. Maybe she levitated into our closet. She was sitting on the floor in there, and she was angry, and I don't see my wife angry that often. But when you're in that middle, what I want to encourage you is what my mama said. He's seldom early, he's never late, and he's always right on time. So the question I want to ask all of you is, what desire or focus is being delayed in your life right now? And then I invite you to read Proverbs 2 again, and then look at it and how God just comforts you and says, like, I'm here. And if you focus on me, right? If you'll simply focus on me, if you'll seek me, listen to me, accept me, store up my wisdom, you'll turn your ear, you'll apply your heart, you'll call out, you'll cry aloud, you'll look for me, you'll search for me, then it'll come. Then I'll give you awareness, acknowledgement, and I'll give you aspiration of a brighter future. I want you to always follow number one, and I'm number one. That's what he's saying there. Discretion will protect you. Understanding will guard you from silliness. Wisdom will save you from knuckleheads. And when you know how the story ends, it'll make it a lot easier to stomach the middle. So I want to encourage every single one of you, if you want to come to the Vibe Room, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and on Spotify, comment, and then share it with a friend. Make sure you do that. I love you so much. This has been Proverbs 2. My name is Kelly Cardenas. Oh, go get the book too on Amazon. You could click the link in the bio. Do that. Support everything. We're listener supported, and I just want to thank you so much for everything. Again, my name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never know, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.